Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, in today's video, we are going to be talking about 2024 interior design trends that I am excited about. This is the companion video of next week's video that you know is coming, which is the trends I'm not excited about. These are the trends that I really love, that I'm really interested in, that I am really jazzed about. Now, first of all, I'm just gonna say, if trends aren't for you, first of all, why'd you click on the video? We've had this talk before. If you're not into trends, you don't have to be, but I do think they matter because A, they're interesting, and B, this is the stuff that starts to show up in the shops, the stuff that shows up in the stores where you're like, oh, but I love this style or this style because I love West Elm or I love CB2 or I love Article or Our House, right? It's because these stores are following trends, because that's how this sort of process all works, okay? So you might not love them, but they're here. And I always just look at trends as ideas. You don't have to like them all. As we're gonna see next week, some of them can just blow right past you, and that's okay. But let's get to the rest of this video. Trend number one that I'm really excited about overall, I think, and this has been a trend for a couple of years because let's be honest, what happened in 2020 is this sort of dedicated office space in the home. I really believe that hybrid work is generally, I think it's here to stay, right? Yes, there's this whole like, people have to go back in the office, but we don't want to because it was so great to not have to commute. Yeah, there's this back and forth. I think the world office work specifically, has fundamentally changed since the pandemic. And I think people have learned that, you know, it is important to have a dedicated workspace, even if you're not there 5 days a week, right? So before the pandemic, people sort of made do with just kind of sitting at the kitchen island, sitting with their laptop on the, you know, on the couch. Like people made do prior to 2020 because it didn't matter, because you didn't do all that much work, or they were doing it on their phone. But now, since then, people are being a little bit more flexible in their schedule. And I think that is a trend that we're gonna see move forward, you know, just in our lives, in our work lives. And the need for a dedicated space at home really matters. And I think it matters a whole lot more than it did before. So I'm loving this trend, which is again, a continuation of what we've seen for a couple of years of these office spaces that are dedicated, that are there for work, that are meant for work. Some of them are gorgeous and beautiful, and they want to be incorporated into the rest of the design for the rest of their space. They are functional as well, which is something really important when you're talking about a work environment. And, you know, it can come in many forms. I think if you're in a larger home, it might be to turn a bedroom into a dedicated office. It might be a studio space if you're a person who maybe does more creative work and you need a space at home rather than renting out an office or leasing a space somewhere. Or if you're living in an apartment, it could just be like a little sort of space or a niche that's like designated and meant for work. That designated space is so important because it means that you're so much more productive and it's beautiful and you actually are going to enjoy the process of being there, as opposed to the less than ergonomically awesome examples that we saw prior to 2020. So I love this trend. This also, by the way, this would have been on my list anyway, of course, because it is really a hot trend in how we're formulating our homes, but it does lead into the amazing sponsor that I have mentioned about 1 billion times on this channel, which is Article. Okay, so my home office has been on a bit of a journey over the last year or so, and I just love how it has turned out by partnering here with Article. As you all know, I have loved Article for years and years and years. Some of my very earliest content on YouTube was about Article, and I've mentioned them thousands of times in videos. I just love that they make furniture shopping really easy. They have such a great shoppable website. Everything is made of really good materials. I love the design, perfect for Scandi or mid-century modern spaces. They really excel in those design styles, in my opinion. I have 2 of the colored desks in oak, which I've had for a while now. I also more recently than that got the Daco oak cabinet, which if you saw the home tour is where I hide all of my cords and cables that I use here for my YouTube channel. And to really soften up the room, I got the Aguila ivory office chair and the Hira Decite brown rug. So if you're looking to make your home office permanent, comfortable, and ready for 2024, which again is one of the hot new trends, click on the link in the description to check out their lovely home pieces from Article. And thank you, Article, for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the rest of the video. Okay, second trend that I want to talk about is going to be biophilic design. Now, biophilic design has been something that has been talked about for the last year or two. And here's the thing with interior design trends. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, this happened in 2020 or 2021, or we've seen this before last year or whatever. People don't renovate their homes every year. Good, because the environment doesn't need that, right? We don't need to do renovations constantly. We don't need to swap out our living rooms constantly. People don't change their homes as frequently as they change their outfits, which is why fashion trends tend to move a lot quicker. So some of the things in this video, you might be like, well, we saw it kind of happen a little bit before. It was kind of up and coming, and now we're just seeing more of it, or an evolution of those trends, or sometimes even a response to things that came before that we're no longer super jazzed about. So biophilic design, what is it and why is it so trending and why is it so hot right now? Biophilic design is more than just using organic materials. It's more than necessarily incorporating plants into a space, although that can be part of biophilic design. It's really an all-encompassing sort of movement towards creating our homes, having a great sort of direct relationship with the outside world. So it can mean organic materials, natural materials, so lots of use of wood, of stone, as well as incorporating plants, but even in space planning, things like having courtyards, so like building homes or renovations that incorporate more windows to be able to let the outside in, to maybe have a garden right outside the window. So it's creating a more sort of fluid sort of relationship between the indoors and the outdoors. So incorporating the outdoors and that landscape sort of inside the home and having almost the outdoors as kind of an extension of the home rather than necessarily having kind of, you got your inside and then you got your screen doors and then boom, you're outside and it's a completely different experience, right? Opening that area up so there's more of a relationship between the indoors and outdoors, right? It can incorporate in things like having sort of curved lines or less sort of straight kind of narrow lines and sort of harsh angles, and instead incorporating in curves and softer area and sort of lines that are not just curved or not just straight, but instead they kind of move all over the place like nature does, you know? So that can be like bringing in sort of more irregular shapes into sort of those coffee tables, you know, sofas, art pieces, decor. So, you know, it's beyond just sort of the squiggles and the curves, but actually something truly organic that is one of a kind. And that also really sort of feeds, I think, into this idea of people wanting less sort of manufactured pieces and a little bit more curated, handmade pieces, which usually often are inherently going to feel a little bit more organic and less sort of man-made and clean and modern like we've seen in the past. Also, I'll add on biophilic design is also about the experience rather than just strictly talking materials, right? So, you know, scent, incorporating in scent and sound, just all the different senses to create an experience that becomes more of an extension of the outside world and bringing that more natural environment indoors. It can come in it's more holistic in its approach than just saying, I really like to have wood floors because they're natural materials, like, which is fine. And that's a part of the story, but not necessarily the whole story. It's really like a multi-sensory experience, bringing that outdoors into your home. Okay, next trend that I'm excited about, and again, I don't think this is like perfect and awesome, amazing, but I'm just gonna say like black stainless steel. Now, there's a little caveat here, okay? Because I have heard, depending on the manufacturer, that there can be issues in terms of gouging black stainless steel, or that it's not necessarily as durable. It depends on if that black stainless goes throughout the stainless steel or whether it's just sort of a coating sitting on top. So do your homework there on making sure that you're choosing the right brand to make sure there's longevity in these, because we obviously, when we're spending this much money on appliance packages, we don't want things that are disposable that are gonna look scratched and ugly in 6 months or a year. That's not what we're going for here. But black stainless in principle, I think is really cool. And the reason I'm excited about it is because it's something different. We've seen stainless steel appliances for so long, right? Like it was just the default. You go and you get your stainless and that's it, right? We had white fridges a long time ago. You know, we obviously see some colored appliances, which are a little bit funky and a little bit weird, but people love them and that's fine. It's obviously a particular look, but it's not for everybody, right? But the default is, let's just get a stainless steel package, right? We got the stainless steel, there you go, blah, blah, blah. Like that's kind of how it's gone. Black stainless, I think it works really well, especially as we see some of those darker toned woods that are also trending, things like walnut, and as well as sort of black millwork as well. Black millwork, charcoal, gray, forest green, navy blue, like really darker, deeper colors. And then when you've got this kind of like big blob of stainless right in the middle, don't think it always really works as well. And so black stainless is sort of a great response to mixing up stainless and giving you another option that, again, I think can be worked into a darker, moodier kitchen much better than we have seen previously. So I think black stainless, again, whether you like it or you choose it or you don't, that's fine. But I think it's just nice to see a different energy into the appliance space and not just going with stainless, which has been so long. Now, I will say stainless is so commonplace that it really kind of reads as a neutral. So it's not exactly like really difficult to incorporate into your space, but it's nice to see some of these like black glass ovens or different options being brought into the appliance space as opposed to just going with the default stainless. There's also different colors that are coming out, as I said, which are really interesting and cool, but I think they're a little bit probably gonna be harder to incorporate into a space. If you're going for a particular look, super fun, love it, cool, cool, cool. But black stainless, I think sits alongside stainless as a nice, interesting alternative. Okay, next up on my list is going to be statement stone. Now, bear with me. I think I've said statement stone a couple of years, but for a couple of years now, like it's been a while since we have seen the funky marbles everywhere. And you might be thinking, oh, is this on the way out? I am personally of the belief that natural stone always looks good. Maybe like there's different interpretations of how we use stone, fine. Like, okay, if you've got polished granite from the 90s or early 2000s in your Tuscan kitchen, might look a little dated, but honestly, you take a granite, you hone it, you can update stone, and like stone just, like, it always looks good because it's nature. Nature always looks good. She's never dated. She always looks fabulous, you know? And I would say that statement stone for me is here to stay because yes, there's gonna be new interpretations of it and certain stones are particularly trendy, but I do think that it's overall a trend that is worth kind of taking a look at because I personally am of the belief that it'll always look good. Now, hold your horses for a second. I will say there are some stones in particular, Calcutta Viola, Travertine, those ones really come to mind for me. Sort of the Carrara marble that we saw kind of in the late 2010s. Those have been particularly used a lot in design, and I sit here as a person who has a Calcutta Viola coffee table behind me, so like, I get it, whatever. You know, they're very common. They're not very common. Like, they're not like everybody's got a Calcutta Viola coffee table, let's be real. But like, we see them a lot in design, right? Designers use the same stones, they see them in other people's designs, designers get inspired by other designers, and then they see them and go, oh, I'm gonna bring that into my project, and they have fun with it. I think people in the design world are seeing those same stones over and over again and thinking, what else is out there? And you know what? There are loads that are out there, and that's kind of really what I want to get across in this point here. Yes, statement stone is great. We all love the Calcutta Viola. We love the Travertine with its little pockmarks and its Swiss cheese sort of kind of complexion there. Like, that's cool. But let's be honest, there are so many other stones that are out there, you know? And I say this as a guy who, like, when I grew up, I didn't realize that I didn't realize you can go to a stone yard and pick your countertops. Like, that's not how I was raised. I was raised, you go to Home Depot and you're like, oh, I guess these are the counters that we have to choose from. But once I got into design and I started learning about it, I was like, oh my gosh, you can go to a stone yard, and now it's one of my favorite places to go on the weekend because I'm a loser like that. And you go to a stone yard and there are so many stones that are out there, and everyone is unique. So you get to pick your slab and choose something really, really cool. And there are so many out there. And that's what I think is really hot right now. Is not just going with the statement stones that we've seen several times, the same ones, which are cool and awesome, and if you put them in, they're amazing. They will always be good, I think, but also recognizing that there's tons of other cool ones that are out there. And that's what I see people having fun with, and I'm really excited to see what people do with that going forward. Okay, next up on my list, and this one is gonna be a little bit controversial because I'm excited about it, even if I don't always love every interpretation of it, so you're gonna have to bear with me. But I'm gonna say textured fabric, especially like textured upholstery. Okay, here's the thing. I get you, I hear you. Yes, we're kind of sick of the white boucle. I get it, we're sick of the white boucle. It's fine, I get it, you know. But for a lot of these neutral spaces, you need lots of interesting textures to actually make the spaces come alive. And so I do think that colored boucles are becoming more popular, which again, I don't really always love, but they are becoming more popular. We're seeing more things like shearling, for example, or sheepskin things. I hear you vegans, I get you. I see you in the comment section. I totally understand. There's also a lot of like non-animal products that can work really beautifully as well, right? But we're seeing lots of those rich textures being brought in. And as we're seeing so many of these sort of neutral spaces, as I sit behind my relatively somewhat neutral space, you know, you're gonna need some fabrics that are gonna be interesting, right? And so those really rich textured fabrics, especially sort of new interesting interpretations of them, is interesting because it's just people having a little bit of fun. Again, I don't always like them. They're not always my taste. That's okay. Not everything has to be my taste. It's not all about me. Well, I mean, it's my channel, so it kind of is, but it's not really all about me. You can choose interesting fabrics that I don't really care for personally, but I appreciate that we're having a little bit of fun rather than just choosing sort of the same fabrics over and over in just like different colors. Because yes, I love the new colors that are coming out. We're gonna get to that in a second, but if you're gonna go neutral, I do love this sort of play on different textures and having fun with our upholstery, as opposed to just kind of going with the same basics, right? That's my own 2 cents. That's what I think is really fun because it does mix up the design a little bit. It helps people, I think, because you can create a cohesive space by bringing similar colors together, which really helps with that cohesion, but without it feeling flat because you're like having fun with texture, which I think is a much more interesting way of really enjoying this trend as opposed to necessarily always just playing with color. So it helps people sort of of be cohesive while also having a little fun, you know, with their fabric choices and their upholstery, which I think is a fun trend. Okay, next up is gonna be stripes. We're talking patterns. Now, I'm not always a huge, massive pattern guy, okay? But I love, and I'm gonna also say polka dots is kind of an honorable mention because I'm seeing lots of stripes and polka dots and checkerboard, and those things are still very, very trendy. And I kind of like them because I love going back to some of these classic patterns, right? So this is very popular in traditional design. These are some basic patterns that have been around for a long, long time, right? Like having a beautiful sort of side chair or a lounge chair, whatever, in some sort of really beautiful sort of striped fabric, I think looks really classic. It's very traditional, looked good 100 years ago, looked good 50 years ago, looks good today. I love to see these sort of timeless patterns brought back over and over again, especially if you see interesting interpretations of them. That can always be really fun. But seeing a lot more of these in both tiles as well as upholstery, as well as wallpaper, just more stripes, more polka dots, classic patterns, things that always looked good, just really that return to some of those traditional patterns that we've been using for so long that I feel like people kind of forgot about because everything just became sort of gray and white Scandi, and now it's just like, oh, we can have fun with some patterns again. And going back to some of those really cool ones that were always good, you know what I mean? And they just always kind of really looked good. And they're coming back into fashion. Even though I think they're timeless, they're now having a little bit of a moment, and I love to see it. Okay, next up on my list is gonna be playful color. So I say this as a person, again, these are trends that I'm excited about, even if I wouldn't necessarily do it. Like, I don't always really love to have really big, bold, saturated color in my own spaces personally, just not my style, but just because, again, not my style doesn't mean I can't appreciate it in others. And I do like to see people having a little bit more fun with color again, right? Now, I'm not saying I would go in and do like a green kitchen, or I'm not saying I would go and do like a bar made out of like, you know, red wine millwork or something, like with a beautiful statement stone. Like, I'm not saying I would necessarily do it, but I love to see people having fun with some of these big, bold colors. Now, some of them, they're a little zany for me. Some of them would go a little bit too far, and they just start mixing lots of different weird colors together, and it just feels reads a little juvenile to me. But I do love some of the more, how do I call it? I'm gonna say timeless interpretations of using color. And I really feel there is a lot more fun and joy happening in design. And this is, again, a movement in the pendulum swing away from some of these neutral gray, white sort of spaces, museum-like minimalism that we have seen in previous years. This is a continuation of a swing pendulum in the other direction, people having a little bit more fun with color, again, pattern. And I think it's overall really fun, even if I necessarily just wouldn't pick it for myself. I love to see it in others. I love scrolling through Instagram and seeing people doing really interesting, beautiful designs, having lots more fun with color. Definitely a trend I'm looking forward to seeing, even if I don't do it myself in my own home. Okay, next trend that I am loving, that I'm super excited for, is blended, or I'm gonna call it hidden storage. I love hidden storage, you guys. It's well documented that I think that the too much open shelving is a trend that I'm excited to see go away. I just think closed cabinetry, underrated, you know? Hide the ugly crap behind closed cabinet doors, I say. And even better than just hiding ugly crap is hiding functional things that we all love, that we all use, but aren't necessarily super pretty. And you're kind of like, can we just hide this, you know? So you've got things like an appliance garage, love those. Like hiding or paneling television behind some millwork, or like some cool mirrors or something, right? Like lots of ways that people are taking things that they don't necessarily want to look at every day. They do use though on a regular basis, and therefore they do want to put them in their space, but they're looking for ways to hide it. And I think people are coming up with lots of ingenious solutions. I thank TikTok for this, and I don't thank TikTok for a lot of things, but I thank TikTok for this because I think the shareability of people being able to sort of share their kind of interesting different storage and hidden sort of solutions for their home has been really kind of shared to the masses. And I think that's a really cool trend that you're gonna see going forward. Also things like hidden cabinetry, hidden coffee bars, like where you sort of open up and you got a little coffee station hidden behind. It's kind of like tucked in the cabinetry is cool, or maybe a hidden sort of wine sort of area. Maybe you don't want a lot of the clutter that maybe comes to a lot of your bar tools, whatever. You can just cover those up behind some closed door cabinetry. It's there when you need it, but otherwise it sits flush with the rest of the space. I think this is really fun. Like some of them are a little bit like, okay, you hid an entire pantry behind a cupboard, but I'm like, why are we doing a Harry Potter under the cupboard thing? Like why not just have a pantry and just have like, why not just have a door? Like sometimes it goes a little bit far for me, and I'm like, yeah, but like, why though, you know? The sense of discovery only is fun once, and then after that, I'm like, okay, now I know where your pantry is. It's just hidden behind a, like, why are we doing this? Like I went to a house not very long ago. It was an open house situation thing. And it was cool, but it was like, someone was like, guess where the basement is? And I was like, why is this I'm on a game show? Like, why am I doing this? And sure enough, behind a piece of millwork, it was like a stairwell. And I was like, okay, that's fun once. But now, why not just have a staircase? Like, why are we doing this? This isn't fun for me anymore. I don't like the guessing game after the first time I play it. So anyway, sometimes they go a little bit far, but I would still say that hiding appliances, hiding different sort of things that are kind of ugly, like maybe a television, whatever, that can be really fun. Okay, and then my last one that I'm going to talk about, which is, I see it all over the place, is gonna be color drenching. I mentioned this in my Color of the Year video for Benjamin Moore that I did a couple of months ago, which is that color drenching is definitely a really hot trend right now. I do think that a monochromatic moment is kind of always a good idea. Like, you can never really go wrong. Well, you can, but like if it's a bad color, like baby poop green, which you know is my least favorite color in design, but like, you know, you can't really go wrong. Like if you're color drenching, you just go with the monochromatic color and you just sort of work it in. Now you can work in with some different tints, tones, and shades of that color. So again, we're not talking about necessarily picking one shade of blue and just like doing everything in that blue. That might be a little bit much, but like playing with the tints, tones, and shades of one sort of monochromatic color. So you're playing with all the different colors, you know, adding black, adding white, adding gray, and you can make a bunch of different versions of the same color blue, right? And so using that in a space, I think is beautiful. These monochromatic spaces are really popular. Now, color drenching specifically when it comes to things like paint is where you are painting the wall, the baseboards, the casings, the ceiling, the crown molding, the trim, the blah, 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 like everything is going in that one color. You pick a color and you ride it till the wheels fall off. You just go everywhere with it. It's very dramatic and it's very fun. Would I do it? Probably not, because it is a lot. You know, like white is different. You can do that with white, but when you start doing it with like orange, it's like, you better like orange, okay? I just think, you know, be very careful with this trend because it can feel overwhelming and it might look dated in a few years. But until then, I'm gonna have fun staring at it because it is really dramatic and really bold, and you're able to create just a very unique and interesting and dramatic style statement with just using paint, with just using that one color. But again, you gotta be careful with it. So taking a room, like having something like a dining room, and then painting the whole thing eggplant, ceilings, trim, you got everything, all eggplant, and then putting the dining table in the middle, and then, you know, playing with different tints, tones, and shades of different whatever, that can be a really beautiful, cool space. But you gotta really like eggplant, and you gotta really like painting over it because you might get sick of it, right? So just be very cautious with this trend, but until then, until it sort of maybe falls out of fashion, it's kind of super fun. Okay, that's it for me for today, guys. I'm gonna leave that one here. Now I'm gonna link here to my video of trends I am not excited for, which is coming up next week. So if you're seeing this relatively soon after upload, it's not here yet, but it will be. So subscribe if you haven't done that. And what are you doing? Why haven't you done that? Come on now. Or if it is up, then it'll be right here and you can check it out. So I'll see you on the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye.